Hi everyone, welcome to Writing Stories with Kimberly D. Tate and L.M. Spilsbury, and we call each other Kim and
Kim
Louise.
and Louise.
That's right. This week we thought we would, and actually Kim's going to do most of the talking about writing a synopsis. This is something that I haven't done or had to do, the synopsis, a 300-word synopsis for a novel. And it's because I haven't been pursuing a career in traditional publishing. And so my experience with writing short has been writing blurbs for book promoters and for promotion on the actual site where the book is listed, and I suppose I should call it a book description rather than a blurb. But Kim was struggling with writing a 300-word synopsis, and then she found some help online, and she thought it would be interesting to talk to you about that. So why don't I turn it over to you, Kim, and let us know about writing a 300-word description for a 180,000-word story.
It's a little bit on the daunting side. You know, I was really struggling. I could do 500 words, but I just couldn't seem to get it down to 300 words. And I sort of thought, well, to make a long story short, I've been entering some excerpt contests with some of my books, and some of them want you to submit a 300-word synopsis. And I was really struggling, and I thought there must be a way, there must be an easier way to do this. So I had it all, like my major plot points, I had them in bullet form. And I know when you're writing a synopsis, you don't write in the character's voice, you're not trying to make it pretty, and you're just trying to get the information down, and it's going to sound dry, it's going to sound more like a how-to manual. But anyways, I did go online and I did find some help, and it was very interesting. I sort of modified it a little bit to the way I work. So what I actually ended up doing was I wrote 3 sentences. And the first sentence, I put in the status quo. And that was, my character's name, how old he was, what he did for a living, the setting, and the main theme of the book, of Cirque du Tarot. And the main theme that, after quite a bit of thought, I thought the main theme was prejudice, but upon closer reflection, I realized, no, the book was actually about forgiveness. And so the main theme is forgiveness, and these are what we talked about earlier about, the value of your work. So the value of Cirque du Tarot ended up being forgiveness. So that all went into one sentence, and it wasn't a very long sentence. It was just kind of like, this is his name, this is what he does, He's a bareback rider in a 1939 circus, and he's fiercely committed to his horses. And the main theme was he needs to learn forgiveness in order to control the tarot magic that's been passed down to him. So that was my first sentence. And then my second sentence was the inciting incident. So the inciting incident was, a small child goes missing from the circus and is later found murdered, and my main character becomes the prime suspect. So that was my second sentence, just, nothing fancy. And then the third sentence that I wrote was, how does he overcome the inciting incident, like what happens in the end, what's the climax, and how does he resolve the theme of forgiveness? What drives him to become a different person? So those were the 3 sentences that I wrote, and they were the main points of the whole entire book. So I ended up with about 140 words or so. And then I thought, and actually was a little bit on the light side, I actually kind of started putting more details in, and I was a little bit under the 300-word synopsis, and it was actually interesting because I kind of found it a little difficult to bump it up to the 300 words. And so it was a very interesting exercise. And, it's easy. It's kind of like it's easy once you know how, sort of a thing. But that's how I did it. And I mean, it all remains to be seen whether it was successful or not. But I did learn how to write a 300-word synopsis, and it's actually not that difficult once you you make it work for yourself anyways. And so so it was kind of an interesting experience and experiment and a learning curve. Even though I'm an old lady, I'm still learning, and just like everybody. But I mean, you've had some different experiences with writing book descriptions and having to keep them under a certain amount of characters. So why don't you tell us?
Yeah. I mean, what you're describing is writing a synopsis in order to submit your work for consideration in a contest. I would imagine that it would be the same if you're submitting it for consideration by an agent or a publisher. And the kind of short writing that I've done has been writing blurbs, either for book promotion or to describe the book on the website where the book is being sold. And it's a little bit different because in a blurb, or a promotional blurb, I will call it, you want to include the first part you described, which is the status quo. You want to describe the inciting incident, or what propels the action in the story initially. But then all of that is just to create interest and excitement in the reader to find out what happens next. But you can't tell them how
No,
it
you
ends,
don't want to give away the end. I mean, a synopsis. Right. When you're writing a synopsis, you have to give everything away. Like, they're very agents are sticklers. Like, they want to know if you've managed to make the ending work, and they need to know. They want to see what you've done. So you can't hold back any spoilers. You can't go,
right.
dumb.
Yeah, that's right. Whereas in a promotional blurb, you create the interest and excitement, and you have to make it clear what's at stake, but you don't give away what happens. It often ends with a question, how will the character survive or resolve this or save the day? So it's a bit of a different focus. The thing about being a novelist is I'm one of these people who hasn't figured out how to write short stories, because it seems that all the ideas I have are big ideas, and I can't seem to write short. The promotional blurbs aside, I did learn how to do that. But just learning to write short is an art in itself. And you and I have been talking about how we need to learn to write short stories, just because it is part of writing fiction, and learning to narrow our ideas down to something very small is very good practice, if nothing else. Mm-hmm. And I think it's also, as a novelist, and in my case a self-published novelist, it's handy to have shorter work available so that readers can quickly assess the kind of writing you do and whether or not they think they might be interested not only in that short story but in everything else you write.
Right, yeah.
So I think it's an important skill to develop. And for those of you who are listening out there, this is something that is certainly on my to-do list in the next year. And
yes,
I know
my editor
Kim
has made it quite clear to me that I need to start writing short stories. And it's hard. Everything I want to write is 180,000 words.
Yeah, I know. So hopefully anybody who's listening to us, stay tuned, and hopefully in the next year you'll start to be able to sample some shorter works that we are going to produce. Anyways, I guess that's good for today. We don't want to belabor the point, so we want to thank everybody who's tuned in today. And check us out next time. We'll be back next week with something else, hopefully, that's of interest to you. Bye for now.
Bye now.